Do you know where Alyssa lived before she came to Minnesota?
Keep watching and you can find out.
Deal. Hi everyone, welcome back to Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa. And as always, we're happy that you would join us today. Today, Alyssa's going to tell us about a place, I believe, where she lived for a very long time.
4 years.
That's a very long time, especially when you're young.
Okay, I guess so. So I'm going to tell you about when I lived on Guam, and I thought I'd like to start off with some pictures of why I was on Guam, not just like touring around kind of stuff. So we're going to start off with a nice picture of what is a beautiful view of Guam all the time, the ocean. Because Guam is an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So if you find Japan on a map and the Philippines on a map, and you kind of just like slide your fingers together, like straight down or straight across, then you'll find Guam. It's very tiny on like a globe, but it's out there. I promise it is. And it's a U.S. territory, like Puerto Rico, so the people speak English. You can have a U.S. driver's license. You'll have a Guam driver's license like you would get any different license if you were in different states, and the money's the same. It's a lot of like basically the same things, but it's just an island. And it's past the international date line, so it's 16 hours ahead. So that's where America's Day begins, and that's like their slogan thing. So I went to Guam to be a teacher, and I already had taught for 2 years in Minnesota, but I visited Guam for a summer and worked at a camp out there and found out that I really loved it a lot, and so I went back to teach kindergarten, and I taught for 4 years. So I had all kinds of students, and just like school here, we started in August. We started a little bit early. That was so that they could have a longer Christmas break. So we had a first day of kindergarten, lots of fun activities. Everybody had brand new crayons and scissors and everything, and they were all super cute. And I had a wide range of like different places where my students were from. I can't even remember how many countries I had represented one year in my classroom. So we did the basics just like you would learn at school here. Lots of time reading, learning how to read, sounding out words, writing, and we had art class too. My students really liked art class. He's a little Filipino. He's a funny little guy. They had art class that they liked a lot. And then we had lots of special days, and I thought those are the days that are really fun to talk about, not just like the everyday classroom stuff. So can you guess what holiday we were celebrating?
Turkey Day!
Yeah, good job! So we were celebrating Thanksgiving. So there's always a day before Thanksgiving where the students can come dressed up as pilgrims or Native Americans, and they definitely got into that a lot.
They look really good as Native Americans.
Yeah, they do. They love dressing up for those days. They didn't have to wear their uniform then. And we also dressed up for Christmas too. The funny thing is that Christmas is hot because it's not like here where it gets cold outside. So like we were outside for this picture, and some of them have like Christmas hats on, but they're a little bit sweaty. Or like long sleeve shirts, and it's kind of a little bit too warm for that. But we still celebrated anyways, and they like to look at pictures that made them think that it was cold, even though they knew it was not going to be cold for Christmas on Guam. We have a day in January every year where we would celebrate Snow Day, and they really got excited for that. So they could come to school dressed in coats and hats and mittens that they had at home, not for Guam, but for like if they traveled to Japan or to Korea during the winter, then they would have the right clothes for it. So this little guy has a ball of snow that we made out of something. I feel like it was like conditioner and something else, but they thought it was like so cool that they could hold snow in their hands and be all dressed up. But when we went outside to play in the playground, none of them wore their snow stuff. They all left it inside because it was too hot outside. But they could wear it inside in the air conditioning. We also celebrated our 100th day of school, and this little girl got all dressed up and fancy, and they were all supposed to bring 100 of something, and so she had this little picture to look like the house from the movie Up, and it had 100 balloons on it. And she was like dressed up to be the little character. This little guy had a shirt that said Miss Levy survived 100 days of me, which was pretty great.
I like that kid. He's so funny.
It was really funny. And then the other little guy next to him, Luke, just like walked by and decided he needed to be in the picture too. We also have an island day where the kids can wear clothes that remind us of the island wear. And this year we took a picture outside of the Koyang, which is a building that they put up while I was at Harvest, the school that I was teaching at on Guam. And they built it in like a Yapese style. So the students who were from the island of Yap wove those leaves together.
Wow.
For like weeks to get them all woven together, and then they put them up in the classic style. And it was really interesting because if you went inside the Koyang when it was really hot outside, it would be really cool because it's so tall, the heat rises, and then from all those palm branches and everything, or all those leaves woven together, it's just really nice and cool in there. So that was kind of a fun addition to the campus. We have a day in the school year where the students can dress up in outfits from around the world. So we have some of the little girl in the Korean outfit on the far left, and then the other three are in traditional Japanese outfits. The one little girl, the second one from the left, it is in a very traditional Japanese, probably with the big bow in the back and everything. So they liked dressing up for those fun days too, and I loved all the colors. That was always so fun. And every year we had a graduation. So as they made it through their kindergarten year, then we would have a big program where all the moms and dads would come together, and they would fill the auditorium, and each class would get up and kind of sing some songs and give a presentation for the parents to see all their hard work that they had done in kindergarten, and lots of the things that they had learned. And somebody I know came and took that nice picture for me.
You were just so smiley.
Well, yeah, because I made it to kindergarten graduation. That's a big deal every year. So much work. Yeah, so that's a little bit about Guam. Next week I want to take you on a tour of Guam. So when people come to visit, one of the things we like to do is take them on a little tour of part of Guam. Now Guam itself, the island is not very big, so it wouldn't take you very long to go around the whole thing. But there's like more interesting stuff just on one side of the island. So that's the tour I'm going to take you on next week.
Deal.
So make sure you come back.
We should go there too.
Wait.
A live tour.
I think oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I have a new story.
Oh, goody.
Yeah. And
And I think it's a good one, right?
go get a snack. Of course it's a good
Okay.
story. So this story is called A Little Rascal Who Became a Man of God. And the interesting thing is, it's not the story of a missionary or a child who learns about something from a missionary. It's a way different story. It's more about a story of a businessman and how he was a bit of a rascal when he was younger. So I don't know if you know that word, rascal. That would be like somebody who gets into trouble a lot, someone who's mischievous, always finding ways to cause problems for somebody else or thinking up sneaky plans and stuff. So the little boy in our story is definitely a rascal. But the story starts off a little bit different. So it's super early in the morning, and Anthony, the main character of our story, was listening to some of the birds outside. He could hear just some of the beginning noises of the beginning of the day, and then he heard a sound. It sounded a little bit like thunder, and then it seemed to get louder and louder, and the family's bird in the cage in their house started to hop around a little bit, and then he realized that their whole house seemed to be rocking back and forth, and it was an earthquake. Terremoto, terremoto! His family yelled, and they all got together as fast as they could to the doorway of the house because it was an earthquake and the whole house was shaking. And they looked outside and it looked like there were waves all over everything because the ground was shaking so intensely. Well, when the earthquake finally stopped shaking so much, there was not even one single building left standing. So many of the buildings had been toppled or were still falling over even after the earthquake had stopped. So there was our character Tony and his family just looking out over their village in Italy, Messina, Italy. And this earthquake really did happen. In 1908 it came and it was a 7.1 earthquake, which is a really, really strong earthquake, and it shook the whole city. And then after it shook the city, for days afterwards, there were aftershocks, so like little mini earthquakes afterwards as the earth tried to recover. Well, Tony's family didn't know what they were going to do. They couldn't stay here. There wasn't a single building standing. How about Aunt Emily? Tony's mom said. Let's go to Aunt Emily's house. So they had to walk there. There wasn't a way for them to take any transportation to get anywhere. They had to walk. So they walked out to his Aunt Emily's house, which was kind of out in the countryside, and her house was much safer. But they didn't have any food because all the buildings that had the food, or all the trucks and stuff, everything had just collapsed. And so there wasn't really anything for them to eat. Tony just kind of chewed on some lemons, but that made his stomach feel kind of sour. A couple days later, they got news that Tony's brother, Ricardo, had died in the earthquake. Ricardo had been taking care of one of Tony's uncles, and he had just been in the building when the earthquake had come, and he had died. And Tony was really sad. He loved his older brother, and his older brother was such a good person. He always did so many good things for other people. That's what he was doing up until the day that he died. He was caring for somebody in their family. Well, about 3 days later, a rescue ship came from the island of Sicily and brought bread and butter, so at least the people had something to eat. And it was really encouraging for them to at least have something to start with. Tony thought about that earthquake many times over. And then when he went to live with his grandmother, she always talked about Judgment Day. So he wondered, was the day of the earthquake kind of like Judgment Day will be like? But he didn't really know. Tony was definitely a rascal, though. He and his family moved to a city, and there were some electric cars there. He thought they were the coolest thing he had seen, and so he decided he was going to race them. So he started running with the cars, and he ran faster and faster and tried to keep up right with the cars. The people of the village said, what a little birbanti, which just means like little rascal in Italian. So the people of the village knew he was always trying to get into trouble and always trying to do things. Sometimes Tony liked to skip school. A lot, actually. And his dad really wanted him to go to school. So one day he said, here's some money. I want you to have this money, this 10 cents, as something you can have special at your recess time. So then you will go to school. Well, Tony had been thinking about not going to school the next day, but now that his dad gave him this money, I guess he had to go. On his way to school the next day, he met up with his friend. And his friend Giovanni said, well, where have you been for the last, or Tony said to his friend, where have you been for the last few days? I haven't seen you. Well, I had to work on my dad's boat, but I guess I should be going back to school. My dad still wants me to work on his boat, but I really don't want to go back there anymore. Tony said, well, I don't really want to go back to school either. How about we hike across the island of Sicily and see what's on the other side? That's going to be so much fun. How much money do you have? So he pulled out money out of his pocket. Tony only had 10 cents and Giovanni had no money. How are we going to get money? Then Tony thought of it. I have an uncle who's a professor, and he has a pond full of goldfish. We can take the goldfish and sell them, and then we'll have money. They found a can while they were walking along, and they picked up the can, they used it to scoop up the goldfish, and they sold the goldfish and got the money. They were doing this all during the day. Well, then it got closer to nighttime, and Tony said, okay, well, now we need to hide close by where my family is staying, and we'll sneak into the neighbors, and we'll take some of their food, and that way we'll have stuff to get across the island tomorrow. So they hid in a cupboard, and they waited. They waited for Tony's family to go to bed. They heard the family whistle. They waited until everybody was quiet. Then they snuck out. They got some food from the neighbors, and one of the neighbors heard them and thought it was a cat. But thankfully they got away. They started running down the alley as fast as they possibly could when they heard, Tony! Tony! And you have to come back next week to find out what happens to this little rascal. He's definitely a rascal. Don't worry, he's going to get into lots more problems from here.
Ooh. Wow. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it does kind of sound fun, but I don't think you should be skipping school for fun.
Yeah. Don't do what he does just because it sounds like fun.
Nope.
All right. Well, we are going to look at someone who we have, looked at them a couple times before. And this is Alyssa's friend from Peru, JR. And if you remember, he lives down there and serves down there. And so we asked him if he could give us another update because it's been several months. So what do you have to tell us?
The first question I asked him is, what's winter like in the jungle? Because it's like their winter time since they're in South America. And he said during the winter or their dry season, it's normally pretty hot and dry. He said they occasionally get some cool fronts that come in, and when they do, it drops the temperature from about 90 degrees to 60 degrees overnight.
Wow, that sounds really nice.
At night, but during the day at 90 degrees? That doesn't sound so nice. But that's what their winter is like right now. So last time we talked to him, we asked him about the camp project, and he was telling us how they got some land for it. So he has some nice progress here, some really nice updated pictures of what the camp looks like. He said the camp's coming along slowly. They had a land dispute with a neighbor that they had to figure out, but thankfully the fence is put up in the right spot and they didn't have to change anything. From these pictures, it looks like they've really made some great progress, but I'm sure when you're there, it feels like it's taking a long time.
Probably.
So right now, they're working on building a 1,000 square foot storage building to house the tractor that they'll be purchasing, Lord willing, this year, and a place to store all the tools and stuff that they'll need for the camp, which is true. You do want to have somewhere to store the things before you just start building stuff.
Yeah.
But this is like step by step of like building things, and they don't have tons of big tools out there. That's just people working really hard. A lot different than like if we were making a building here. We would probably have a lot of equipment out there. Blocks, carrying them, putting them together.
Wow. Looks good though.
It does. It looks really nice. Like, it's a good start to the whole project. I asked him what his like daily schedule looks like. And he says most days he has the morning free to be able to purchase food or wash his clothes or get ready for activities. In the afternoons, he's at the library a lot with the kids. Most days he's there from 2 to 7. And some days he has meetings and activities in the evening too and doesn't get back to his house until like 8 or 8:30. He asked that we would keep praying for the children at the library and also the kids at the Bible clubs, that they would see their need of Jesus. He just said they got to start up their Bible clubs again last week, so this would be like 2 weeks ago. And they had about 60 children show up. Which is really exciting.
Yeah.
It's cool to see. He asked that we would keep praying that the camp project, that God would keep blessing the camp project and continue to provide the things that they need, and that everything would be able to continue progressing without any major issues. It is tricky when you're doing a project in another country. Sometimes you run into little problems or people or stuff like that.
Yep. Wow, well that is neat. And nice that they can be all together and like do stuff together again.
Yeah. I think he just had a team down there that he was doing some translating work for too. So that's probably, I mean, it's helpful, but it's also extra busy too.
Yeah.
When you're trying to do your normal stuff and help out other people coming to visit and all of that. So if you think of it, you can pray for JR this week and for his kids ministry. Maybe if you go to the library, you can think of those kids that he gets to have at his library, that he gets to share the good news of Jesus with. And then their good news clubs and just kids clubs.
I don't know if you noticed, but our background looks a little different. And so that was what was, well, not really a hidden item, but we did a little changing here, and that's to stay. So we're excited. And anyway, we hope that you enjoyed today, and we look forward to having you next week. And hopefully, if you like this, you'll give us one of those likes or subscribes or whatever it is you guys do when you really appreciate what you see. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.